how are you all? I hope you're doing well. I wanted to talk about the recall Gavin Newsom effort in California for a little bit today. But before we get started, can we all just take a second and appreciate Gavin Newsom's audition tape for the remake of Psycho?
It'd be damn nice if our homegrown teams start focusing on what's right. Everybody outside this state is bitching about this state. Taking a lot from a few folks dominating all those other damn states.
Booked it. On a serious note, let's talk about this recall, and some new information came out that I don't think is going to be very good for Gavin Newsom. Clearly, he is looking a little shaken in that video, and that might be because his recall effort is really gaining momentum and more people are wanting to recall him. So this is actually a sample ballot. This is what it'll look like. And you can see a lot of people were worried about Republicans sort of oversaturating the ticket because a lot of Republicans are entering the race, but really it's Gavin Newsom against the yes or no question. So this is a sample ballot. This is what is his name? Gary Davis. This is the other guy that got recalled a while ago. But you can see it says, do you want to recall, yes or no? So that's really who Gavin Newsom is against. And then you'll have the list of Republicans there, and whoever gets the most of the votes is going to take it. It doesn't even matter if they only get 20% of the votes. Whoever gets the most will be the next governor. Of course, if a Democrat decides to run, that might shake things up a little bit, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And as far as election integrity, so they are pushing out the mail-in ballots, and we know that they are going to try everything they can to stop the recall, to keep Gavin in office. They've already done this. They pushed the date from October up to September, and I had a feeling they were going to do the mail-in ballots thing. You know, they're going to use the virus as an excuse to do this, but I will say this. I don't want to lose hope. I think it's gaining momentum, and a lot of people are really worried about election integrity. You have a lot of volunteer groups that are recruiting volunteers to work on the election. They're recruiting poll workers. Of course, I don't know how that's going to work if it's mail-in. Maybe we'll look into that at another time. But I get emails every single day talking about volunteering and stuff like that. So there are people on it, and I don't know why. This is how I felt about Cuomo. I don't know why, but I just have a feeling he's going to get recalled. Maybe this won't age well. We'll check back in a little while, but I just have a feeling about this. And the reason this is so important for everyone to pay attention to is because California really is the future of progressive America. And if you don't think California is infecting the rest of America, just look at who is in high office right now. You have Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, Gavin Newsom's aunt, she's San Francisco. You have Kamala Harris, Vice President, San Francisco. You also have a lot of the policies that have already been implemented into California, which are the reasons that California is failing. A lot of these things are already starting to creep up on a national level. So that's why it's so important. And another reason this is so important is you'll see Gavin Newsom try to label this as the Republican recall. I even got one of those. I don't know if it was a bot or not because I got responses. If I can find this text message, I'll put it up right here. But I even got a text message that called it the Republican recall. That's what they're trying to paint this as. It's the Republican recall. It's the Trump supporters. Really? There's a lot of Trump supporters in California? Sorry. Really? But that's what they're trying to label it as because they don't want people to know. No, it's not a Republican recall. No, it's not Trump supporters. It is everyday people who are tired of the homelessness. They're tired of the crime. They're tired of the high taxes and not being able to afford to live. It's Democrat. It's people that maybe don't even vote, that typically don't even pay attention to politics, but are just so tired of watching their quality of life just slip through their cracks. They're tired of seeing homelessness increase and increase and increase, and they're tired of seeing their elected officials take their tax dollars and just throw it at housing options for homeless people that are flocking to the state because they don't enforce quality of life laws. And then we're just going to give them free housing while regular people are working their butts off just to be able to afford to have somewhat of a decent life by the way that they're seeing slip away. And we're having this exodus in California, and you hear the big names, you'll hear things like Joe Rogan moved out and Elon Musk moved out, but really the majority of the people that are leaving are just regular middle class people. And I didn't even touch on our lockdown orders, how locked down we were, and how Gavin Newdles was basically breaking all of his lockdown rules, going to the French Laundry, having his kids in private school while other kids were stuck at home, implementing mask mandates. That's another thing that's happening right now in California. When he broke all of his rules. And then there was that infamous video of this woman who was a restaurant owner, and our restaurants had to shut down 2 times. So they opened back up and then they had to shut back down. She went to go, after she had to shut down her restaurant, she went to go pick something up and saw that there was a movie being filmed right next to her restaurant, literally right next to her restaurant. And she saw the craft services and all the tables, and she's like, this is okay, but this isn't okay. And that's just another example of what is wrong with California. And at the core of this, really the core of all this, you're like, well, why are things so bad? Why are they implementing all of these things that seem to go against the people that live in California? Because they're more concerned about special interest, and they're more concerned about their political careers and their political optics than they are about the people in California. And that's why there are about 60 recall efforts happening right now in California. And I'll just show you how out of touch and the backwards policies that they're implementing. So I'm going to sort of jump to a few different things, but I'm trying to give you examples of just how bad it is. So you have SB 132 that was passed in California, which basically says, it was introduced by Senator Scott Wiener. It was signed by Governor Gavin Newdles, and it basically says that if you self-identify, your biological sex does not matter. If you self-identify as a man, you can go to a women's prison. So since this was implemented just less than a year ago, we've had over 100 inmates request to transfer to women's facilities. None of them have been denied. It doesn't matter if you look like a woman. It doesn't matter that you have male parts. You can look fully male. As long as you identify as a woman, you can get transferred. Well, we just had a pregnancy in one of these prisons because of this. You also have, look at this. This just blows my mind. This is how out of touch our leaders are. So this is Heidi Marston, Executive Director of the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. This is a quote from her. "The crisis we see on our streets is directly attributed to the high cost of living, lack of affordable housing, and failed safety net systems that are perpetuated by systemic racism." That's the Los Angeles Homeless Services, the executive director of Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. California has about 50% of the nation's homeless. We'll just take Venice Beach as a little sample. About 70% of the people in Venice Beach are not actually, so about 70% of the homeless in Venice Beach are not from Venice Beach. They have flocked there from other places, and they will tell you this. All you have to do is walk around and ask the people living in tents where they came from and why they're there. They are flocking to California, to places like Venice Beach, because they're allowed to camp on the streets, they're allowed to do drugs, they're allowed to steal up to $950 worth of items. and nothing will happen to them. So they flock here. Why wouldn't they? And then they blame it on housing. And what they do is they throw billions of dollars into making these expensive housing units for our homeless, who a lot of times refuse them. And taxpayers are putting money and taxpayers are paying for this stuff while they're being subjected to this increased crime, the drug use, the feces on the road. You had San Francisco where 17 Walgreens pulled out because of the crime. Target started closing at 6 p.m. because of the crime. And this is Oakland, just now. Just yesterday. Oakland Chinatown leader demands Governor Gavin Newsom to declare a state of emergency because residents are living in a state of fear due to the violent crime. You even had Gavin Newsom himself, who was walking around in Oakland and got attacked on camera. This is happening because we're not holding people accountable for low-level crimes. You had Gavin, who's releasing all these people from prisons. You have DAs in big cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles who are not prosecuting. So you have the perfect storm for emboldened criminals that are just doing what they want. Just yesterday in West Hollywood, where I used to live, on one of the streets that I used to walk down every single day, I used to go to school. So this happened on Melrose Avenue. If you're not familiar with Los Angeles or West Hollywood, Melrose Avenue it's where the Groundlings is. So the Groundlings, it's an infamous improv school. It's basically the breeding ground and the hunting ground for people that are on Saturday Night Live. When it was funny, it was more infamous, but it's an infamous place. A lot of really cool shops. I used to go there all the time. I used to walk there every single day because I went to school at the Groundlings. A 35-year-old employee at a place called the Shoe Palace was shot and killed over a scuffle over shoes. And these types of things are happening more and more. You see random people getting robbed right in broad daylight in the middle of the street. And this is an area where homes a block away from where this person was killed cost $1 million. So now I'm going to tell you what I just saw, and I'll link to the full video below. It's about a 14-minute video. You gotta watch it. This was wild. So PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, I didn't know this, but they are responsible for several fires that happened in California that have killed many people. One of the fires that they're responsible for was the Paradise Fire. I don't know if any of you saw, there was a documentary on Netflix about the Paradise Fire. It was a few years ago in Paradise, California. 84 people died. And the reason this fire happened was because PG&E had not fixed. There are hooks that go under the power lines, and they neglected to fix those because it costs money to fix them. It costs money to inspect. It costs money to fix. It costs money to keep things updated. Well, they neglected to do this for a really long time, and those weakened hooks, I guess somehow, you will have to look into this more, but that is basically the reason why the fires happen, because those are what hold up the lines, what keep them separated. And PG&E actually even pled guilty to 84 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Okay, so they're guilty. They pleaded guilty. This isn't a secret thing. But the thing about it is, when it's a corporation and you plead guilty for something like this, they can't send the corporation to jail. So they settled to just pay out the victims. It was supposed to be about $10,000 per family member of victim. After the Paradise Fire, there were 2 more fires that PG&E was directly responsible for that did kill more people. PG&E basically sought bankruptcy protection, and Gavin Newsom signed a bill that bailed them out and gave them insurance up to $21 billion if this were to ever happen in the future. And when you really look at this bill, it was really watered down. It actually didn't require them to do anything. So it's one of those bills that really benefited PG&E and not the victims. Gavin Newsom also got $200,000, actually a little over $200,000 in donations by PG&E, and had a lot of meetings with PG&E before this bill was signed. He also paid millions of dollars in taxpayer money to have private firms write up this bill, even though there are people that will do that within government for free. So watch the whole thing if you want to. It'll explain it further. It's pretty shocking, but these are the types of things that happen in California, and this is why we are not doing well. I'll even show you too. Here's a quick little clip from that entire video where Gavin Newsom is actually being asked about this $200,000 donation. And this is even before. So the guy that's asking Gavin the question, he's the investigative reporter that's reporting on all of this. And this was even before he really knew about the bill that Gavin Newsom was signing. So look at his answer, and this basically look at how he answers this question. This basically just says everything.
That's why when the bill was being debated,
any questions?
We pressed the governor for answers about PG&E's money. PG&E was convicted of 6 federal felonies in 2016. After that, you took more than $200,000 to help get elected. How should people trust you to be running the show to come up with the solutions?
I wish you luck with whatever you're working on, but that's a strange question.
Anyway, let me know what you guys think about everything. If you're wondering who I'm supporting for the recall, my top people I would say right now are definitely Larry Elder and Kevin Kiley. Kevin Kiley is someone who I recently discovered who kind of just recently jumped in as well. I really like him. He's already a California assemblyman, so he sort of already knows the ins and outs of what's happening within the inner workings of the government in California, which I think is a plus. Another thing I like about him is I know this sounds odd, but I have my reasoning for this. He also used to be a high school teacher, I believe in like South Central LA or something like that. So I really appreciate that somebody that would work in office knows what's happening kind of like on the ground, what teachers deal with, what it's like in some of these areas. So I think that's pretty cool. Larry Elder is still a favorite, but I'll probably maybe do a video about that and look farther into them later on. I will see you all later. Bye.